What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Rise Podcast. My name is Hanny. I'm the host. In this podcast, we interview entrepreneurs and business leaders who are doing amazing things, who want to be able to share their story to inspire someone else. Today, I have a special guest. I got Carpenter Johnny. He is the fastest that guy in the Manitoba Wild West. Thanks for being on the show. I appreciate it, man.
No, thanks for having me. I love doing these things.
I appreciate it, bro. So Johnny, man, I know I've been watching your stuff over the last, couple years now. I've known you. But tell me, man, before you started whaling construction, you were working at RONA, right? Before managing director. And what were those days like, man, before people knew what Carpenter Johnny is?
Well, so the whale poop at the very bottom of the ocean, very bottom of the food chain. That's what was me. That's how I started out. Pretty much was very humble job, sweeping floors, loading construction materials into the backs of contractor and company trucks. And very quickly I realized that if you want to be somebody important, somebody relevant, you have to learn knowledge and acquire the skills to be somebody that's of value in our society today.
And also, too, you're an immigrant, bro. So tell me a little bit about that, because I never even knew.
I'm not an immigrant, but I am the son of immigrants.
Yeah.
And it is, I do think it's important that you mentioned that we compare immigrants to, how they do in business and in careers compared to Canadian citizens. And it is documented that immigrants have much stronger drive than Canadian citizens or to children of Canadian-born citizens. And what was the statistic that you're more likely to become a millionaire if you're an immigrant versus somebody that was just born in this country?
No, it's crazy. When you look at those stats, you're like, how the hell is that even? So take me back. So are you from Winnipeg? Whereabouts are you from? Because I know you're from Toronto originally?
I'm an import to Winnipeg from, the center of the universe, AKA Toronto, where they vote for, what's it called? The liberals over there that pretty much tell the rest of the country what to do.
Yeah.
But I moved here for more opportunity that I felt was here in Winnipeg, Manitoba, that wasn't in Toronto, Ontario, if that makes sense.
And when you say opportunity, what's the difference between Winnipeg, Toronto? Because you've been here like how long now?
I think this is going on to year 7.
Okay. So tell me that journey, like when you were first back Toronto, Winnipeg, 2 different markets, right?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of things that I can do here in Winnipeg, Manitoba that is just so hard to do in Toronto. So Toronto is a lot bigger, more congested, more population. And so if you're running a construction business, if you're a contractor driving from point A to point B, even doing like an 8-kilometer drive could easily be a 40-minute ordeal, easily. Whereas here in Winnipeg could be 15 to 20 minutes. So I'm able to operate here in ways, because I have multiple businesses, I have properties, I have multiple interests. I'm able to operate in a way here in Winnipeg, in terms of how I schedule my meetings and all my jobs that I simply could not do here back home in Toronto, but I can do it here in Winnipeg, Manitoba. So for example, during my construction season, we do these things called Carpenter Johnny's Super Saturdays, where I can, book like 3 small jobs, and I can, maybe do a 10 or 11 hour work day and drive around the city and do these small jobs all in one day. Can't do that in Toronto.
That's a very good point. I mean, probably traffic and movements, especially over the years now, have probably made a big change. But tell me, man, and when you first started your business, did you get into like real estate originally, or did you just get into like construction? How did you, were you buying rentals, or is it just like more like trades? How did you get into real estate?
So when I first moved to Winnipeg, I was actually part of, Stefan Arnio's, now the disgraced Blackcard University's, real estate coaching program. So they promised that by buying their program, you can get into flipping and make money from flipping. And so the whole business model was that, you find a property at 60 cents on the dollar and you hire a contractor, and that then there's a spread where you can make some money. And so they're saying, oh yeah, if you have a career and you have a business, it can be relatively hands-off. So I did that. And I was also building my fence and deck company, because I have a fence and deck business that's still based in Ontario to this day. And I opened up the Manitoba division here. But back to the real estate flipping side. I never made any money, flipping real estate in Manitoba. And I'm actually the lucky one. I just broke even. And it's pretty evident that if you want to be successful in real estate, rather the active business component of real estate, you have to be super hands-on. You got to keep your thumb on the contractor. And I'm saying this as a contractor myself, because a lot of contractors, and again, like no offense, like to, okay, I'm not going to drop the F-bomb. They like to mess around.
Yeah.
Right? They like to duck around. So if you don't have that component, and there's also other like advantages you need to have. So I know a lot of investors might be realtors, or they might have a realtor wife that can list the property for them. They can save some money on selling the property, listing the property, as opposed to getting a listing agent, being the general contractor yourself, sourcing the materials yourself. Because ultimately, the more people you put into your business, the contractor, the realtors, all these other specialists, you start, eating up the pie.
Yeah. So you originally got into it with just flipping properties? Was it just like, because most people think you need to like, people get into the business and they want to like own rentals, right? They tell you like own that one rental and then get another one, a duplex, and get another one. What's your take on that method?
Yeah, so I personally currently have 8 doors myself under management. And so people always ask me, they're like, John, like, how do I get into the wealth accumulation game like you? How do I get these rentals and get the money to, acquire rentals and maintain rentals? And all I got to tell them is that if you're not a business owner, if you're not able to make active business income and you just have a job and maybe you're making $100,000 and you work for the government, or maybe you work for some, fancy company. If you don't have a business, if you're not earning active business income and you jump straight into the rental game, you are going to go bankrupt within the first 5 years.
So you're saying you need to have active income, right? Most people think they got to like buy rentals and that kind of thing. So what is the fastest way to get into real estate?
Well, you've met my acquaintance, Bryce Kaminsky, and he's a real estate wholesaler. And so a lot of people think that in order to do real estate, you have to either flip properties, or you have to, own properties, or you have to maybe partner up with people and invest money to get a passive return on, doing, making money in the real estate business. But as we both know, you can actually get into real estate with no money down. And the easiest way to partake in the industry is through finding real estate deals, discounted real estate deals at 40 to 60 cents of the ARV after renovation dollar, and to assign out those contracts to people that actually have the money and the knowledge and the skills to take the product all the way to completion.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think when I first found out about real estate wholesale, I'm like, whoa, you can actually do that? I'm like, what? I had no idea. And I think when I connected with Bryce and of course you, I'm just like, yo, this is the perfect way to get into the business. Because also you learn skills, right? Like talking to sellers, especially in Winnipeg, man. A lot of people are going through problems. Like it's everywhere, man. It's all over the city. So for you, Johnny, when you're getting into the business side of it, especially working with Steph and Anya, what are some things that you learned working with that company that you're able to take into your business?
Well, I want to say I was a bit different than their average, coaching client, in the sense that I already had a business. I was already earning active business income. I already had the skills of the entrepreneur, where the primary ones are marketing, sales, negotiating. Canadians are actually terrible negotiators. They don't know that they can ask for stuff. They don't know that they can alter the deal. They don't know that they're supposed to put themselves out there. It's not that they don't know. It's just that a lot of people are either shy or they're scared of being judged. And the thing about entrepreneurship is that if you're worried about how people are going to perceive you or how they're going to feel about you, about what you post, you have no business being in business. And I think it was Steve Jobs who said this about entrepreneurship. He said, if you want to make everybody happy, don't be a leader. Just, serve ice cream instead.
Because you can't make everybody happy. It's impossible.
No, he'll never make people happy. And and that's the problem, is that a lot of, business owners are very, they're very lukewarm, and they're like kind of like wet blankets, where they're trying to play it safe and they're trying to curate this image. So maybe they won't post enough because they're trying to make sure that every post is, appropriate and, makes everybody feel happy. But what I learned very quickly in business, especially with dealing with a lot of the haters, because again, the more famous you get, the more notoriety, whatever. But the more well-known you get, the more people are gonna, be talking crap about you. So what I quickly learned is that we want to respect the people who pay us. We want to respect the people that give us the money that we used to pay the bills, the mortgages, the employees, whatever. So what I focus on is pissing off the people who don't pay me and making content and respecting the people that actually do pay me.
So you're more the community and that kind of that drives the economy kind of going. But Johnny, take me, man. So you're saying you started off essentially working with Stefan and then wholesaling real estate, getting into the rental game. How did you get into the fence and deck business when you started Wheeling Construction?
Well, so when I worked at RONA, I was networking with contractors. So when people say, oh, I'm at a dead-end job, how do I get out of it? Well, if you're working at a dead-end job, usually there's no room for moving up the company. And now I was lucky that in the industry I was in, working at the RONA warehouse, I was exposed to all the contractors that are around me. So I'm loading material for these guys and these individuals, these businesses, these business owners. They obviously make more money than the managers that work at RONA. Like these guys have pickup trucks. They're running their own companies. Sometimes in the back of the truck, you see the hockey bag with all the hockey equipment, because after they're done work for the day, they're taking the kid to hockey practice. So I realized very quickly that these people have money and we got to talk to people. And so people always say, oh, there's no opportunity. My employer won't promote me. I'm not learning, new skills. I'm not learning anything. So I think the call to action here is placing yourself in an environment where you can get exposure to people that are actually doing something. And this is why the events that you run, the Hanny Lounge, where there's, local entrepreneurs that come and they speak at your event, and there's, young individuals, mainly generations Z that come over to get exposed to that. I think that this is something that's very important.
No, 100%. I agree with that. I think, and who was it? I think, was it Bryce or someone that talked about, like, if you want to like get ahead, I always tell people like find a mentor, find like a business owner or an entrepreneur who has done the thing that you want to do and just go work for them for free or just go learn from them, right? Because a lot of times when you're working a job, you're not really making as much, right? Depending on how much it is nowadays with the wages. Like people rather work a job for like $10, $15, $20 an hour when they can literally go work for a CEO who's doing, I don't know, 6 figures, whatever. They can learn so many skills, negotiating, marketing, sales, right? And take that and probably, look at what he's doing and maybe create your own business one day, right? So I think that's so confused nowadays, especially with the new age of social media. Everybody wants to get rich so fast, but it's like, bro, learn the fundamentals, because as you know, wholesale and real estate, we're learning how to talk to people, right? We're dealing with a lot of sellers. Same thing with rental properties. People just want to jump in. They don't even have no idea, wealth building strategies. But for you, that was kind of like your learning curve. You wanted to jump into the job force, be like, okay, I want to take this and I actually do something with it, not just be in this job and just do nothing. So when you were doing that, how did you end up like getting out of that job?
Well, again, you network with people and you ask for opportunity. And, if you go talk to like 100 people, maybe 10 will say maybe, and maybe 3 will actually give you a job. So I actually got opportunity with, 2 people out of the, maybe the 300 or 400 contractors that I talked to. And one guy got me into, gave me more exposure into carpentry, doing custom house framing. And it was a pretty brutal job, where you're getting cussed at all day. That's how it is, starting out in carpentry. You're getting thrown right into the fire and you're working with more experienced guys that maybe don't have as much patience. But, you learn some skills, handling construction materials and doing cuts. But the real opportunity was working for a fence and deck contractor. And he said, John, I'm only going to hire you on the basis that you do marketing and sales, because I already got enough idiots that work for me, by the hour. I want to work with somebody who's going to have the skill set of the entrepreneur and who's going to grow my business by doing marketing and sales.
So you're really just learning the fundamentals of like just essentially getting people in, signing them up to buy, and essentially that's how you were converting. So that was what RONA as well too at that time when you
That was through RONA that I got
okay.
these opportunities. But yeah, the most important thing about the skills is that a lot of people like they think that to have business skills, you have to go to business school and you have to get like degrees and shit. But then you go and you talk to these what's called people that have bachelors of business administration. You ask them basic things about business and they have no idea. And the problem with that is the business schools are churning out people that are mainly focusing on accounting, finance, and high-level management. And so the problem is that they're teaching people how to be compartmentalized as a cog for a big business, and they have no understanding of actually how to run a small business. Like they're learning how to operate as a component on such a high level for a big organization. They can't even take the knowledge they acquired at school. In some cases, they might have paid, $40 or $50 or $60,000 for the education. They have no idea. And so I was actually talking to somebody a few years ago, and he told me that what I'm about to tell you now, he told me that I changed his perspective on business. And he actually has a business degree. And what I told him was that I think it's the four main components of running the business, which is doing, the marketing, the scales, marketing, attracting the clients, talking to them on the phone, doing the sales, closing the business, knowing your numbers, the logistics. So we're getting all these contracts. Okay, terrific. How can we honor all these contracts? And then the last component that's often overlooked, especially in the contracting industry, and that's what usually makes a lot of guys fizzle out and go bankrupt within 5 years, is the bookkeeping side. Because again, they're not keeping track of their numbers, not keeping track of their taxes. And at some point, the Canada Revenue Agency just shuts you down.
Yeah, no, 100%. Because a lot of people think they can also too get leads, but they're bad at converting leads. So they'll get a bunch of leads, but they don't know how to do sales.
Or no, maybe they don't even get leads.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm in an industry where people are bad at getting leads. They're bad at doing sales. And in some cases, they might even be bad at the logistics of actually fulfilling the contracts that they have. And so I believe in this city, reputation is very important. I find a lot of contractors, they get too much on their plate. They're going around collecting all the deposits. They have the hat out or the Santa goodie bag, and everybody's putting the money in there.
Yeah.
But then they're getting stuck at a job and they can't fulfill it. And I know so many contractors, as soon as they have more than 2 or 3 clients at the time, their business starts to fall apart. Whereas with my, Carpenter Johnny fence and deck business, typically in a month, during the spring to fall seasons, I can have anywhere between 14 to 18 clients a month every single month. So you got to think about all the logistics that's required to plan every single project, make sure that every single detail and specification and client wish list is being followed. Making sure that all the customers feel like they're being heard, but more importantly, actually fulfilling all these contracts.
But it's a lot of damn work, man. This guy is nonstop going at it. So Johnny, tell me, man, because entrepreneurship is not easy, bro. I think when you talk about like getting 13, job sites, right? Like clients, and you have to go fulfill that, right? Do you believe everybody can be an entrepreneur? Like, do you think realistically?
So you mentioned something earlier about people think that they need to have skills, right? People saying, they want to get rich quick, but they actually have to learn skills. But I have a different philosophy. And so obviously my perspective now is a lot different than my perspective 10 years ago. I mean, it hasn't changed much, but something that has increasingly been on my mind, especially in the last few months, is the spirituality and the philosophy of entrepreneurship. Because, sometimes we feel that we're misunderstood and people don't understand what it takes. And so people only see the finished product at the end. They see the polished and refined entrepreneur after 10 years. And now he's getting the attention and he has the recognition and he has all the clout and all the reviews and all the accomplishments. But nobody talks about the mindset and the philosophy that was required to get there over the last 10 years. And so something that I just want to say is that tomorrow I could lose everything. Like I could lose all my money. I could lose all my properties. I could lose my business. But the one thing that I won't lose is the knowledge and skills and the mindset that I've acquired over the last 10 years. So let's say I go bankrupt tomorrow. I would actually be able to acquire all the things that I currently have now, and I'll be able to do it even faster. And I might even be more successful and richer because of all the non-tangible things that are in here and in here that I'm still going to have with me no matter what.
No, I agree with you, bro. I think that's because you can always, I mean, people think, especially in business, like the first couple of years you make money, but like you talked about earlier, you break even most of the time. People think like, oh, they might see someone like, hey, or look at them like they're successful, but it's like, bro, they're really just, they're pushing forward even though during those tough times. So I think it's, yeah, because you can go, I think year 3 is a good number to really see that, okay, what market are you actually in? Is this market actually making sense? Is your product, people actually, you delivering on the, because that's when you actually can see what's working, what's not working, right? The beginning stages, it's just like, you know, you're just talking to people, you probably don't even have bookkeeping and shit, which is shit probably have, but most entrepreneurs are just like hustlers, they go-getters, right? But then as you start to develop, then you learn how to like, okay, I might need someone to bookkeep because you can't do sales, marketing, bookkeep. It's tough, man.
No, you can do it. You can do it.
So what is your take on that? Because I know you've grown your business and now you're pretty much, you know what I mean? You say the fastest dead guy, you know, Manitoba Wild West. What does it take to go from year 1, year 2? Now you're in year, I believe, 7 or
either year 11 or 12. It doesn't really matter. It's over 10 years. You know,
Nice.
The 1% of entrepreneurs that succeed, that are still, you know, left standing after 10 years. Well, if I could give some basic advice, don't neglect bookkeeping, right? Because if you're already like upside down the first year, like you're going bankrupt. So you don't even have to hire necessarily a bookkeeper. You can get QuickBooks online. So, you know, you go and you pay like, you know, $60 or $70 a month. You have everything digitalized. You can sync it with your bank account, keep everything organized. I'd also recommend maybe taking a basic bookkeeping course, knowing what you can write off, what you can't write off. How I actually acquired a lot of this knowledge is spending hours on the Canada Revenue Agency website and actually learning the rules, you know, the small business, the small business tax rate. So in Manitoba, there's no provincial corporate tax rate. It's just the federal corporate tax rate. So it's just 9%. And the first $500,000 of profit in the corporate level is subject to the 9%. And now, obviously, if you want to pay yourself out of the business, look at either dividends or taking a salary income, and that's subject to additional taxes. But you can definitely start there. I do recommend incorporating earlier. A lot of people in Manitoba, I find, want to be owner-operators, sole proprietors. Like, oh yeah, it's easier. It's less bookkeeping. It's less fees. Yeah. The problem is that self-employment income, sole proprietorship income, is taxed at the same rate as employment income. So while you do get more write-offs, you are essentially leaving more money on the table to give to the government. And you know what the government does with the money? They're spending, you know, millions of dollars every year, stocking up the tampon dispensers in the male bathrooms in all the federal government buildings, right? So we don't want to be doing that. So find a way where you can be leaner, more efficient, track everything, understand how the numbers work. Another piece of advice I have for people starting out is a lot of people have the misconception, oh, I'm a business owner. You know, I'm a king, I'm a queen, you know, I deserve all this fancy stuff. And so they have this entitlement problem. But the reality is that especially when you're starting out, like the customers don't care that you drive a fancy car or that you drive a fancy truck or that you go on vacations or that you're a fancy guy. In fact, that actually might even piss them off and alienate them, right? And I find that especially in the contracting business, the construction business, a lot of guys that start out, they start maxing out their overhead like crazy. They're like, oh, I need to have this pickup truck. And they're driving like an $80,000 or $100,000 truck. Never mind, that's almost like 2 down payments for 2 rental properties here in Winnipeg. You know, they're just living beyond their means. And the challenge is that eventually it does catch up to them financially, and that they've also had lifestyle creep. And, you know, we have market cycles. All of a sudden, the economy is not what it used to be, and we have to cut back, we have to make sacrifices. But if you've already overexpanded financially, most of the time you're going bankrupt.
No, it can be tough. I think a lot of people try to keep up with the Joneses. Like they'll look at someone else on, we talking about earlier, like social media or what's so-called like real estate what people think they're like, oh, successful because they have so many. This is another thing too, I realized because I do so many networking events now and I meet so many people who have like rental properties. They got like 5, 10, 20 and people think, oh, that guy must be successful. But it's like, but he still works a job. So that just shows you that this is passive income you're making from your rental properties, but you need, like you said earlier, you need active income.
No, but what passive income?
That's what I'm saying. No, the rentals, people think that they own it because it's money they can't really touch. So you can have millions of dollars in in assets, but your cash flow it's non-existent. So cool, because I know you own some rental properties as well too. So what's that been like for you so far? Like, give me the truth, honest opinions about owning these houses, because people think you need to buy them, you need to, you know what I mean? Depending on if you're doing active.
Buy and hold real estate is like a siege city. All the people who don't know anything about it, they want in. And a lot of the people that are in the game want out. And so you're talking about passive income and cash flow. This is buy and hold, real estate in Canada. There actually is no cash flow. Cash flow assumes that at the end of each month, after paying your investments, there's actually some residual income that's left over. And I'd recommend if you did have any sort of residual income left over, that you put that money aside in the reserve for future major repairs that can be used for that rental property. But the truth is that majority of rentals in Canada are cash flow negative. And that's why I tell people, if you have a regular job and you're playing the buy and hold game here in Canada, you are going to go bankrupt. And so my strategy mainly for holding rental properties is that it's more of a tax write-off. It's more of a hedge against taxation on my active business income. It just so happens that every month, the mortgages get paid down and I'm able to expand my balance sheet and grow equity while minimizing the tax bill.
No, I like this. So essentially you're just playing the game just to know that, okay, CRA, I have these properties and essentially this is gonna just be like a way that I could use it as a leverage for my business.
Yeah, it's more of a hedge, right? But if you think you're gonna jump into Canadian buy and hold real estate and the tenants every month, they're gonna pay my car payment and they're gonna fund my vacation to the Caribbean, the upcoming winter. It's an absolute pipe dream.
Yeah, especially now with the interest rates and the way the economy is kind of going. Like COVID, I think, interest rates were, peak 0%. And the next thing you know, as they started to go up, inflation started also catching up as well too. So now people who bought that very good interest rate, now there is certain people think they're making money now. People want to buy at high interest rates. So how do you kind of determine the value of your properties? Because you bought stuff since like COVID or so?
I started accumulating rentals in 2021 when interest rates were the lowest. I remember I was getting interest rates at 2.25%, and that was for a 5-year fix for a commercial mortgage. And a lot of the investors said, "Oh, John, you're leaving money on the table. I can get an open variable for 1.8%, but you're paying 2.25%." But then when the rates started to go up in 2022, all of a sudden, all those investors that were getting under 2% rates were now paying like 6 to 7%. And I'm still at, 2.25%, 2.5%, like my average interest rate. Because I did start getting mortgages while the rates were going up. But my average rate was 3.5% spread out throughout my portfolio on a fixed basis. Whereas a lot of these investors were getting completely financially screwed with a 6 or 7% interest rate.
And that's a great point, because people just want to jump without actually doing their homework, education on the market and what's happening. They just, I want to buy it because it's gonna go up. It's like, look at the math, man. Because the math, if it's not mathing, like you talked about ARV, the math is not mathing. Why should you buy it, right? So it's a good way to look at the 40% and the 60% rule, because that's a good hedge for you to actually make money. So Johnny, tell me, bro, when you started your carpenter business, how did Carpenter Johnny come about? And this, people call you, the most wanted fence that guy in the Manitoba Wild West. How did you come up with that, man?
No, well, so it's a lot of propaganda techniques. And so what I learned is that if you say something enough times, people start like believing it and repeating it. And eventually it actually does become the reality, right? You know, like I am, you know, I want to drop the F-bomb saying I'm a shit talking, you know, F word, whatever. But no, but it definitely is true. Like you got to have the belief that you can achieve and accomplish all these things and have the track record, eventually build the track record to demonstrate it. And eventually, you know, you do manifest, you know, the reality and people can see what you're doing.
No, also too, man, you're a very good marketer, man, because in marketing, I used to think like you have to make new content every single time. But essentially, you can say one thing multiple times in different kind of content strategies. So for me, I talk a lot about my story of how I got like robbed and lost like 50K. I talk a lot about like growing up in downtown Winnipeg and stuff. And people resonate with that so much more compared to like, oh, like how much money I made in my business, or, you know, this is what I'm doing. People don't care about what you've done. They care about like the story and why you're actually doing the things you're doing, like the why, right? And so for you, you really touch base on the being the fastest dead guy, and then haters come your way. It's like, no, man, like I've been doing this business for so many years, like you said earlier, but it's just like, how did you discover that? Because that's a method most people don't know about marketing. It's like, say one thing multiple times, people will remember you for that. So it's quite interesting, bro. How did you get into because that's a little bit of marketing, right?
Well, like, you know, at the time I was smoking a lot of weed. So, you know, we're stoners, right? So we come up with all these like funny ideas and think about stuff that people don't really think about. And, you know, we make a lot of jokes and stuff like that. And no, I mean, a lot of people, you know, think it's really cute, you know, being like, oh, I'm like the most wanted, you know, fence and deck guy. And you you Photoshop something that you're in it's like what's called a Western wanted poster. And it's like, yeah, wanted by the Red Seal Carpentry Sheriff Authority, wanted dead and alive. You know, $10,000 reward, bounty, whatever. And people think it's really cute.
Yeah, you're into the meme stuff a lot. So you do a lot of memes, bro.
Well, now we're actually moving to a whole new level where we're now making AI generated videos. So
there you go.
Something that you can actually take away from that is you want to find out what people that are on the top of your industry are doing, or what's being done by top people in other markets that are more advanced in the local market that you're in. So I'll give you an example. I come originally from the province of Ontario. And so Ontario, I would say, is at least 10 years ahead of Manitoba. But then you look at the American market, and the American market is at least 10 to 20 years ahead of Ontario. So what I've done is I've looked at marketing strategies done in the United States, and I bring them here to Manitoba. So for example, in Manitoba, I noticed that nobody's making the customers laugh, right? Nobody is making engaging content. And it's gotten to a point with my brand that it's not even about building fences and decks. It's about, you know, selling myself as the individual, where the customers are like, hey, you know what? Maybe he doesn't have his red seal. Maybe he's not like the best carpenter, but you know what? I think he's funny. I think he's adorable. I believe I can trust him. He makes me laugh. This is somebody I want to work with. So I noticed that in Manitoba, nobody does memes, but now I'm at a whole other level where we're now incorporating artificial intelligence to make, you know, funny videos. And yeah, nobody else is doing this. They're still not catching on to my marketing strategies that I've been doing for the last 6 years. And now we're taking it to a whole new level.
No, I've seen some of your stuff, man. It's hilarious. It's funny. Yeah, adaptability is so important, especially with AI. Like if you're not keeping up with what's happening nowadays, it's easy to kind of, because in business, it's always about looking at technology, looking at your business, how you can adapt. But also too, man, as you're like going on in your journey of building a business, like you said earlier, for you, it's about that community, right? But then you're going to come across those haters, right? Because when you're building your business, like you said earlier, you're doing it for the people, right? Then those guys who don't like the business that you're doing, those are the ones that don't want to pay you for the job that you're actually doing, right?
Or they're not even a customer.
That's what I'm saying. So what is your take, man, on these people who are sitting on the sidelines, who don't even got nothing really going on, and just be sitting at their house, commenting, chatting, and, you know, saying these names to you? Because I've seen a lot of your content. I mean, gotta give it to you. You know, you come at them rough, but you know, you gotta be straight up, right?
Well, I want to say that even for the haters, whether they like it or not, they're actually part of the brand. Because I've been telling people, oh yeah, we have all these keyboard carpenters that hate you and your family, and they hate you for trying to work with a affordable local guy to get by in this marketplace. And so, we say all these things, and all of a sudden these losers pop out of the woodwork, and it validates everything that I'm saying. But what you were saying earlier about, building community. And I find that entrepreneurship is actually about community and social responsibility and making people feel like they're included in your brand and business. And so I was actually started reading this book called How to Win Friends and Influence People by, I think it's Dale Carnegie. Yeah. And so he said, so one of the chapters, I think it's chapter 3, I'm not even halfway through the book, but in chapter 3, he talks about how the problem with a lot of people and unsuccessful salespeople and business owners is that they focus too much on what people can do for them, and they're not able to communicate clearly about what the entrepreneur, the business owner, the salesperson can do for them, right? And so when I do the marketing and sales process, I'm always trying to talk about how I can help people, how I can add value to them, how I can stretch their dollars even further, how they can actually benefit and get ahead by working with Carpenter Johnny. Whereas the focus of other businesses is, oh, you should hire me because I have credentials, because I'm a fancy guy, because I drive a fancy truck and I have decals and all that. And I'm like, look, the presentation looks good, but you're focusing too much on things that the customer actually doesn't really care about.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think I was telling you earlier, people care so, like with people, I'm in the product-based business. They care so much about the product. Like, oh, this is iPhone 11, it's a 12, 13, 14. But nobody really cares about the product. They care about the person. Like when you came to support my business, you're just supporting a small business because there's a lot of people who have, who have these phone shops, businesses, but nobody really knows them. But you supported me because you felt like I'm doing good work in the community. I'm also a small business. So you feel like that reliability was there, right? And so I think most people forget about that, and we connected through the community, right? It's like, it's so small, but it works. And a lot of time people are looking for, they're doing DMs and all this. It's like, bro, I didn't even look for Johnny. Johnny just reached out to me, right? Because of that mutual benefit. And I agree with you. That's why we do a lot of events. We do a lot of bringing people together because, yeah, man, entrepreneurship is hard. You're on year 11, and I think I'm on year 3 or so. And so I find that especially as a young guy, there's times where, bro, it's tough, right? And you need people that can kind of motivate you, inspire you to keep going. So that's why I feel like for me, community is everything. Because without that, we wouldn't be here today. So, so that's kind of my whole thing, Johnny. But so yeah, man, like haters, they're gonna come. You said they exist, and it's all a marketing. And if you focus too much on the product, then people will never come back to actually support your business. So tell me about Whalen Construction. You've been in business for 11 years or so. What's been the toughest challenge of growing that business so far for you? Like what's that been like for you?
No, the business has just been growing exponentially.
Yeah.
Right. Like when I started in Manitoba the first year, and it was during the pandemic, I only did, I think it was like 35 projects the first year. And it's not because I couldn't get more business. The business was there. It's just that I couldn't even get construction materials to build my products because you'd literally go to every hardware store and there was no lumber to buy. So, that's all we were able to get. And then year 2, I think I did something like 71 projects. So we pretty much doubled by 100%. And then year 3, we did 83 projects. Year 4, I'm talking about Manitoba, not including my Ontario, because I've only been doing business in Manitoba for, I think, like 6 years. I think I'm going to year 7 now. But last year I did 131 projects in roughly, I'm going to say 8 months, right? Wow. So look, the business is there. And so I believe that the challenge isn't necessarily how to attract more clients. I believe the real challenge, because once you master the marketing and sales component, it's now figuring out the logistics side. And so now the new challenge is, how can I better improve the processes, maintain the customer service while I scale, while doing things faster, better, more economically, for the benefit of the consumer.
So essentially, it's all about deliverability. Like, how can you actually deliver what this client wants, and it can be in a certain time zone that this person. Because when you're getting that many calls and dials, it must be. So how many yeah? What's your team looking like when it comes to like building this out? Because you said Manitoba 7 years. It's. So do you believe in business? Because I know you're yeah, I think you're more of like an old school kind of guy, more of like you got to work hard because hard work is available. But earlier you talked about the mindset, right? Because the entrepreneur, when times do get tough, you can work as hard as possible. But if your mind is not right, things can happen. So what's your take on mindset, skill sets?
No, like skill sets obviously important. The knowledge base is also very important. Knowing it's not about knowing how to do things. It's more about knowing why we do things, like why we get up on time, why we respect the client, why we go out of our way to meet deadlines for the clients, why we're doing all the marketing and sales, right? Like why we invest in our business, why we do the things we do. Because if you wake up in the morning, you're not sure about yourself, you're not sure about why you're running your business, why you're helping people, you got a really big problem. Because in business, there's a lot of things that happen that aren't fun. And I know we focus about all the wins and the successes, and people see Carpenter Johnny holding awards and getting all this attention, but nobody really talks about in business about all the shitty times. And so if you don't have a reason why you're getting out of bed in the morning to get through all the shitty times that often happen in business, you're going to get absolutely wiped out emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. And eventually all these things manifest into making you feel terrible physically, where you can't even get out of bed and work.
Johnny, what's your big why? Like what's keeping you up, like serving the Manitoba community? What's that thing that keeps you going?
No, it's actually the community itself. Like it got to the point where I'm not really driven by money, because, the money's already there, right? There's all these consumers in the marketplace. Like I have a theory based on the number of houses that are the single detached homes that are in Winnipeg, that every year there's 2,000 fences, decks, and landings to be built every year in the city, based on the fact that every 20 to 25 years, all these improvements or like fences, decks, and landings have to be replaced in the city. So there's, I'm going to say, about 6,000 opportunities every year. And there is at least 200 companies that are all, bidding for all those jobs. So the market is out there. It's a, big blue ocean. The business is there. The money is there. All these people have money. They're going to pay somebody. And there's some people that say, John, I don't like your jokes. I've decided I'm going to pay 100% more. I'm going to pay 50% more to hire your competitor to get, in most cases, a very comparable, similar product. So don't say, oh, the money isn't there, because the money is there and people are paying extra. But for me, it's the fact that there's people out there that love the work I do, that they love my content, that they love my energy, that they love my business. And so my biggest why is getting up in the morning to go take care of the people, to make the people who support my business happy, because that's the most important thing, having that community you've built all around you.
Because the money could disappear tomorrow, but you'll still have that why that keeps you up. And because you're doing, bro, 130 something projects. It's a lot, man. Most people probably be done after like job 10 or something, which is kind of crazy. But John, tell me, earlier you were talking about repetition in business. I think this is probably the biggest one. I'm in the real estate space. I think it's going on to 2 years now. I do phones as well too. But I find that the market is quite interesting. You meet a lot of interesting people in the market, in the business. And I find that there's a lot of people who, like you said earlier, like what's in it for me mindset, or they try to like go behind your back and try to do something to you or something. Or they don't, like, if the deal doesn't go through, they just kind of ghost you, or like there's no relationship being built. I feel like a lot of it is transactional. Of course, it's the business of like real estate, and people are like, deals are happening fast. So if the deals are closed, on to the next one, right? But I find that the guys who are like there's relationship, there's mutual like connection happening. Those are guys who actually, that's why you see the wholesale business is only like 7, 8 guys who are really like active and really just like close together. So why is that so important in business? And how do you keep that composure where you probably met so many people now, you've helped so many customers and dealt with so many investors, right? What's that been like for you, man? What would you tell someone that's getting into this business? Like, what would you advise them?
Well, no, well, the two things for talking about maintaining composure. Well, the most important thing is consistency, right? Because the problem with a lot of people, like I said earlier, they're lukewarm, they're wishy-washy, I refer to them as wet blankets. Like, oh, you hurt my feelings, right? That kind of thing. No, but being consistent, doing the work, showing the reps, documenting the process.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you do the same thing for 10 years, right, it becomes like second nature, becomes like brushing your teeth. And I understand that not every single person that reaches out is going to be my customer. So for example, in order for me, to get the 131 customers in 8 months, I'm probably going to have to filter throughout 500 leads. Let's say there's 500 people that reach out. So we filter through 500 people. Then out of the 500 people, I'll maybe do 200 estimates. And out of those 200 estimates, you should be aiming to close at least 50% of them, right? Now, obviously, my conversion rate is a lot higher. Like I'm above 60%. So out of the 200 leads, I'm going to get 131 clients based off of last year's numbers. So it's all about, knowing your numbers, having the good conversion rate. It's also, the longer you are in business, the more referrals you're going to get, right? Because you do work for one guy and all of a sudden that one person is referring you to everybody in their network. So I find in the fence and deck business, you'll do work for somebody that's in their early to late 30s and they just moved into a new build house in a subdivision. And you do good work for them. And then they start referring you to what I call cohorts. So you now start dealing with cohorts where it's people in their network that are around the same age as them, that are also forming new families that had just moved to a new build property as well in the last, year or maybe the last 5 years. And they're looking for a fence and deck guide too. So there was actually somebody I did business for last summer that through them, I got 4 other leads. No, actually, not even leads, 4 other closes through the referral. So one person gave me actually 5 opportunities.
Wow.
And that's still a drop in the bucket compared, when you think about all the projects I did. And then there's also the real estate community where somebody that's flipping a house, 15 times in a year might have, 5 opportunities, because out of those 15 houses, maybe there's 5 of those houses need a fence, deck, landing, gate, whatever. So you want to value those people, because a person that can give you a job 5 times a year is technically more valuable than a regular residential homeowner that's only giving you a job every, 7 or 10 or 15 years. And you start scaling up your business, because now you start accumulating, I call them the commercial clients, the contractors, the investors, the property managers. These are people that have the capability to give you repeat business several times a year, every year. So let's say one of those people on average gives you 3 jobs a year and you have 10 of those people. All of a sudden, that's like 30% of jobs that's coming out of 10 people. That's like 20, what is that? That's almost like 25 or 28% of my business based off last year's numbers. And then to answer then your final question about maintaining the frame. So that's actually something very important. I don't really watch much TV, but there are a few shows that I think that every person that's thinking about entrepreneurship should at least, watch a few episodes. So the 2 shows I would recommend would be Suits and Mad Men. And don't watch the entire show, but maybe watch some episodes of the first 3 seasons. Now, what's really important about that show is that there's actually a really good example that people could use. I personally apply these mythologies in my business. So both the main characters, you have Harvey Specter in Suits and you have Don Draper in Mad Men. And both, the characters, have faults. Harvey Specter, I would say, is more stoic and has far less faults than Don Draper in Mad Men. But something that they're very successful in doing is something that's called maintaining the frame. And so you find that in negotiation, it's like a game of tug and war, or is it tug of war, where people are playing hard to get. It's like playing poker, where you don't know what cards other people are holding, and they're taunting you and they're playing mind games, or they're giving you bullshit offers or whatever, and they're hoping that they'll break you mentally, where you'll give in and you'll give them what they want. But if you can maintain the composure long enough, eventually they're going to break and you're going to get what you want. And so something that's unfortunately, I got to say, in business, and I'm not a sociopath, by the way, but I'm going to say this, is that unfortunately, business is a very cutthroat game. And unfortunately, to be successful in this cutthroat game, in this cutthroat world, dealing with a lot of cutthroat people, that you have to develop sociopathic tendencies where you're able to not show emotion. And so, I mean, if you can tell by my face, right? Think about it. I'm in my early 30s. I've been in business for over 10 years. Like, I've gone through a lot of stress, but yet there's no visible lines on my face. Like, this is what's called the classic sociopath face. Because people that have these, that are sociopaths or have those tendencies don't show emotion. And because they don't show emotion, they're not frowning, they're not smiling, they're not angry. Because usually people that have these strong emotions and exhibit them because they can't control themselves start developing certain lines and wrinkles in their face. And so unfortunately, I have to be able to turn off my emotions in order to make all my customers happy, in order to deal with all the haters. I have to leave my personal emotions and feelings at the door, take care of my customers. Like, the customer doesn't care that, you're stressed out, or that something happened, or your dog died, or your grandma's in the hospital. Because at the end of the day, unfortunately, it's just business, and they gave you a job to do and you said you would do it. And they don't, while, people can care that you have some personal problems, at the end of the day, you have a job to do and you told them you would do the job. And so you have to, again, leave the troubles at the door. And, the haters don't care that things aren't going, your way. And fundamentally, customers can be sympathetic, but they don't care that, you're not maybe feeling your best and your happiest. They care about performance.
No, 100%. I think you have to have a tough skin, man. It's a tough game. And like you said, it's unfortunately, that's what it is. People are looking to, it's competition, right? You got to be a beast mode. I think Grant Cardone talks about being obsessed, or you're going to be average. Like, if you're not obsessed, if you don't have the mindset of like a winner, and when times do get tough, if you're not bouncing back up, guys are out there to they can easily go to someone else that they can refer to. But if you're still kind of going and maintaining the business, no one can really outlast you. It's about consistency, like you talked about earlier. So, Johnny, what would be one piece of advice you would give to my audience who's listening to this message?
Don't just listen to other people's advice, right? I'm obviously saying that like tongue in cheek, but so, what's Carpenter Johnny's message to the world? It's, love yourself, love your work, love your community, but more importantly, think for yourself, right? There's too many people that are just like mindlessly following things. And they're like, oh, maybe if I buy this next course, maybe if I go follow this, this next guy, maybe if I go change my career, I can, it's going to make my life happier. I'm going to have this breakthrough. And the reality is that you don't get instant breakthroughs. It's all about consistency. And I find, especially with the younger people, it's like every 3 or 6 months, if they're not changing their gender or sexuality, they're like changing their career path or their business. And it's like, no, look, I've been doing this for, over 10 plus years. And yeah, sure, I've been building fences and decks, but I got to a point where I'm advertising differently. I'm making money actually in different ways. And in starting out your business, like, level one is you have to go work a job, any job, right? And so you work for somebody and they pay you by the hour. And then level two is that you then start, working for yourself, and you start getting paid. People pay you for your, for your specialized skill set. right? But maybe you're still working on, some sort of hourly rate as a freelancer. And then level 3 is that you're operating as a business. And so now you're making money. People are paying you for, your time management, your specialized skills and assets that your business has, right? And then level 4 is that people are now paying you for who you are. And that's being the brand.
That's the trust. That's how you really just close them off. Yo, Johnny, you got some great piece of advice, man. Like I said, it's, you got a lot of stuff to share, man. And you, like I said, the thing I like about you is your reputation is really what matters for you, man. Like your community, it's people, and and you work hard for the stuff that you have. You didn't just wake up here and things just came to you. It's like 10 years of consistently getting up every single day, doing 130 projects. Most people are not cut up for that, right? So it's like you have to really, really, focus in on the skill and really develop that mindset to be able to, because, fence and deck is not easy. A lot of it is, you're working out there in a job site. Most people don't have that kind of discipline to do that every single day. So Johnny, tell my audience where they can find you, man.
Well, easiest way to find me is on Facebook, 25,500 followers on the Carpenter Johnny page. I go semi-viral like almost every week, it seems now. And one of my posts that went semi-viral got me, a short, cameo or appearance on CTV News. I believe that was aired Friday night. What was it? January 29th, I think.
Okay.
Right. But you can also find me on TikTok. You can find me on Instagram. I have a YouTube that's not really that big, but, I still have a YouTube. So I'm actually somebody that's really easy to find, and, I'm there.
There you go, man. So Carpenter Johnny, man, I really appreciate it, bro. Thank you for being on the show. It's a pleasure, man. You got a lot of nuggets. You got a lot of wisdom to share, man. So this is the Riot Podcast. I'm your host. My name is Hanny. Stay tuned for the next episode, and we're out, man.